Ray is 63. He drove a regional delivery route around Wichita for 35 years. His wife Carol is 62. Their house has been paid off for a while and their savings are modest. When they sit at the kitchen table with a calculator, the word they use about themselves is behind. Ray and Carol are holding an asset worth about $1,080,000. It has never appeared on a statement. No bank has ever sent them a number for it. Most personal finance content will not tell them it is an asset at all. For 30 years, they were told a story about compound interest that was never going to work for them. Meanwhile, they were quietly accumulating something worth more than most of the portfolios in their zip code. I'm Tom. This channel is about real personal finance, the kind that works for normal people, instead of the kind that sells you something. No motivational fluff, no fantasy returns, no get rich quick. Just what the math actually does over time. If that is what you want, hit subscribe. Start with why the compound interest story failed them, because it fails almost everyone the same way. Compound interest needs two inputs. It needs a base large enough to matter, and decades for that base to work. The online calculator assumes you have both. Ray did not start putting money away seriously until his 40s, which is completely normal. I covered the timing math on this channel recently. The finding was that compounding does not become the majority of what is happening to your money until roughly year 20. Ray never got 20 clean years. Run the honest version. Say Ray put away $500 a month starting at 55. Over 10 years at 7% after inflation, that builds about $83,000. It supports around $276 a month of retirement income. That is a real number and worth having. It is also 13% of one average Social Security check. For a person starting late, everything the portfolio can realistically do is a fraction of something they already own. Any stream of income converts into the size of the pile that would be needed to produce it. That is the withdrawal math run backwards, at a 4% withdrawal rate. Every $1,000 a month of income corresponds to $300,000 of portfolio. Now apply that to Social Security. The average retired worker in America collects about $2,084 a month, per the most recent Social Security Administration figures. That is roughly $25,000 a year, adjusted for inflation annually, paid for as long as you live. Generating that same income from a portfolio would take about $625,000. A married couple who both worked and both collect near the average draw about twice that. Their combined stream corresponds to roughly $1,250,000 of portfolio. Sit that beside what American households near retirement actually hold. The Federal Reserve puts the median net worth of households aged 55 to 64 at about $364,000. So one average Social Security benefit is worth roughly 1.75 times everything the typical household near retirement owns. For a couple, more than 3 times. The largest asset most Americans will ever hold is not the house, and it is not the 401k. It is a stream of government payments that never shows up on a balance sheet. The shape of this changes depending on who you are. Ray and Carol's combined benefit comes to about $3,600 a month. Price it as an asset that is $1,080,000. My neighbor Diane is 62, single, a dental hygienist in Tulsa for 34 years, with her 3-bedroom house paid off. Her benefit at 67 is projected around $2,000 a month. Priced the same way, $600,000. The couple's invisible asset is 1.8 times the single person's. That cap matters, and it is smaller than it looks because Diane also needs less. One person does not spend 80% more than half of what 2 people spend. Both of them are holding more in this one asset than in everything else combined. Neither of them has ever seen it written down. Now I want to be careful with the word millionaire, because this asset is genuinely different from a portfolio. You cannot sell it, borrow against it, or hand it to your children the way you would hand over an account. If Ray needs $40,000 for a new roof, this asset does nothing for him, but it has 3 properties no portfolio has. It never runs out, however long you live. A bad market cannot cut it, and it raises itself every January to keep pace with inflation, without you doing anything. A portfolio drawn at 4% carries a real chance of running dry over a long retirement. Social Security has no sequence risk at all, so valuing it at 4% is, if anything, conservative. The gross number is not what lands in the account. Medicare Part B premiums come straight out of the check for most people over 65. The standard premium for 2026 is $202.90 a month. A year earlier, it was $185. So the average gross of $2,084 is really about $1,881 net, priced as an asset. That is $564,000 rather than $625,000. Still larger than the median household's entire net worth, but it is the honest figure. And healthcare inflation has been running faster than the cost of living adjustment, so that gap tends to widen. Taxes take a second bite for some households. Depending on your combined income, up to 85% of your benefit can be subject to federal income tax. A handful of states tax it as well. That does not change the ranking in this video. It does mean the asset is worth somewhat less than the gross arithmetic suggests. The honest number sits below the headline one. Two other assets belong in the same category, and most people leave them off the ledger too. The first is a pension, if you are one of the people who still has one. Congressional Research Service analysis of the Federal Reserve Survey found something useful here. About 35% of households aged 55 to 64 expect income from a defined benefit plan. A pension paying $1,500 a month is another $450,000 of asset. The second is a paid-off house, and this one works in reverse. It produces no income. Instead, it deletes an expense permanently. Ray and Carol have no mortgage payment. Whatever that payment used to be, no portfolio has to fund it. Every $1,000 a month of expense you remove is $300,000 of portfolio you never have to build. I walked through that arithmetic in the video about how much you actually need to retire. It is on the channel if you want the full version. Add the pieces up for Ray and Carol, $1 million of Social Security value, a house that deleted a permanent expense, and a modest portfolio on top. That is not a couple who is behind. It is a couple measuring the wrong things. Say the largest asset you own is an income stream. Then the decisions that change that stream outrank the decisions that change your portfolio. The biggest of those is when you claim. For anyone whose full retirement age is 67, claiming at 62 pays 70% of your calculated benefit permanently. Waiting until 70 pays 124%. That is a 77% difference in a payment that lasts the rest of your life. Price it as an asset and the gap is stark. On an average benefit, claiming at 62 produces an asset worth about $438,000. Claiming at 70 produces about $775,000. That one decision moves more than $300,000 of asset value. Compare it to anything you can do inside a portfolio at 62. No fund selection, no allocation change. And no advisor alive can move $300,000 for a household with a medium balance. I am not going to tell you the answer is always to wait, because it is not. Health, whether you are still working, and your own family history all change it. The break-even between claiming early and claiming late runs somewhere around age 80. That decision deserves its own video, and I intend to give it one. What I want you to take from it today is the scale. One form on a government website moves more money than a decade of investment decisions. There is a trap sitting right next to that form, and it catches people who claim early while still working. If you take benefits before full retirement age and keep earning, Social Security withholds part of the check. In 2026, the limit is $24,480. Above that, they hold back $1 for every $2 you earn. Someone earning $50,000 while claiming early would see about $1,000 a month withheld. That is most of an average benefit gone. The important detail is that the money is not confiscated. Your benefit gets recomputed upward once you reach full retirement age to account for what was withheld. But for years, people have claimed early, kept working, and watched their check shrink without understanding why. There is a second decision on the same asset that almost nobody thinks about until it is too late. When one spouse dies, the household does not keep both benefits. It keeps the larger one and the smaller one stops. Run that on a couple like Ray and Carol. Say the split is $2,400-$1,200. When one of them dies, household income drops from $3,600 to $2,400. A third of their monthly income disappears on a day that is already the worst day of their lives. This is why the higher earners claiming age matters twice. It sets that person's benefit, and it sets the floor for whichever spouse lives longer. If the higher earner had waited until 70, that benefit would be about $2,976 instead of $2,400. The survivor would keep that larger figure for the rest of their life. It works out to roughly $173,000 of additional asset value handed to whoever is left behind. For most married couples, that single consideration is worth more than every investment decision they will make in their 60s. There is a piece of this that households with one main earner almost always miss. A spouse can claim on the worker's record up to half of that worker's calculated benefit. That holds even with little or no earnings history of their own. On a worker whose benefit is $2,400 a month, the spousal benefit runs up to $1,200. Priced the same way, that is $360,000 of asset. It sits with a person who may believe they contributed nothing. Two limits are worth knowing. The spousal benefit is capped at half the worker's full retirement age amount, and it does not grow with delayed credits. So a worker delaying past their own full retirement age raises their own check and the eventual survivor benefit. The spousal benefit does not move while both are alive. A third lever exists, and it is smaller than the internet suggests. Social Security calculates your benefit from your highest 35 years of indexed earnings. Fewer than 35 working years means the gaps enter the formula as zeros. Replacing one zero with a $60,000 year raises the eventual benefit by somewhere between $20 and $46 a month. Where you land depends on the formula. As an asset, that is $6,000 to $14,000. Real and not life-changing. If you have gaps in your record, an extra working year is worth having. It is just not in the same weight class as the claiming decision, and anyone telling you otherwise is selling something. Now the part where I argue against my own video because of framing this tidy needs stress testing. The obvious objection is the one you are already thinking. What if Social Security is not there? The 2026 Trustees Report came out in June. The retirement trust fund is projected to be depleted in the fourth quarter of 2032. That sounds like a cliff, and it is not one. Depletion does not mean payments stop. It means the reserves are gone and the program runs on incoming payroll taxes. At that point, the trustees project 78% of scheduled benefits would be payable unless Congress acts. So run the pessimistic case honestly. Take the average benefit, cut it to 78%, and price it again. The asset is worth about $488,000. That is still 1 1/3 times the entire net worth of the median household aged 55 to 64. The worst commonly projected outcome leaves this as the largest asset most people own. The pressure behind those projections is not mysterious either. In 1960, there were about 5 workers paying in for every beneficiary. Today, it is closer to 2.7, and the projection for 2045 is about 2.2. The second objection is that the average is doing enormous work in these numbers. Monthly payments in 2026 run from about $52 to over $5,000. That is an asset range from roughly $15,000 to over $1.5 million. If your earnings record is thin, your asset is smaller than the one I have described. The arithmetic still applies. It just applies at a different size, which is exactly why you should pull your own number instead of trusting mine. The third objection is the one I care about most. Nothing here is a reason to stop investing. Ray and Carol's portfolio is small, and it is the only part of their finances they can actually reach. It pays for the roof, the car, and the year the expenses spike. Social Security cannot do any of that. An income stream you cannot touch is not an emergency fund, and treating it like one is how people end up in real trouble. So the honest position is that both matter, and almost everyone has the weighting backwards. They spend their attention on the small liquid pile and ignore the large illiquid one. Mostly because only one of them sends a statement. The weighting also depends heavily on your age. I do not want a 45-year-old taking the wrong lesson from a video built around a 63-year-old. At 55 with 10 years left, $1,000 a month invested produces about $550 a month of income. That is a quarter of an average Social Security benefit, and the ranking in this video holds. At 45 with 20 years, the same $1,000 a month produces about $1,640. That is close to 80% of an average benefit, and $1,500 a month would pass it outright. So the younger you are, the more the portfolio can still become the larger asset. The older you are, the more the decisions in this video outrank anything you can do inside an account. Here is what to do this week, and it takes about 20 minutes. Go to the Social Security website and pull your actual benefit estimate, not the average I have been using. Yours at 62, at your full retirement age, and at 70. The site shows all three. Take the number at your full retirement age, Multiply the monthly figure by 300 and write it down. That is what your benefit is worth as an asset. If you are married, do the same for your spouse, add them together, and note which of the two is larger. That larger one is the survivor's floor. Then set that total next to your actual portfolio balance. For most households watching this, the first number is several times the second, and most of you have never seen them side by side. If the first number is bigger, your most valuable financial decisions over the next few years are not investment decisions at all. They are claiming decisions, working decisions, and expense decisions. Compound interest did not make Ray and Carol rich, and it was never going to. 35 years of a delivery route did something the calculator could not. It built a payment that arrives every month for as long as they live, adjusts itself for inflation, and cannot be lost in a crash. They earned it with payroll taxes out of every check since the 70s. It was on their pay stubs the whole time, described as a deduction rather than a deposit. What will actually change your retirement is not a better return. It is recognizing what you already own, then making the handful of decisions that determine how large it gets to be. If this was worth your time, hit subscribe. I will see you in the next one.